Welcome to InterPartyConflict, the show where we sometimes, every once in a while, starting today, just do sort of an informal whatever episode. We typically talk about tabletop gaming. That might be what we mostly talk about today, but we might get into some other stuff too. Gabe's got some stuff that he wants to get off his chest.
Yes, I do.
So we'll definitely be getting into that. But I don't know. We're just gonna see what happens today.
Cool.
So hope you guys enjoy it. If you are not a fan of what we're doing today,
yes,
please let us know by emailing us at interpartyconflict@gmail.com. You could also take a survey. What's the
bit.ly/interpartyconflict.
Yeah, there's a little survey you guys can take. We're on, Reddit, Facebook, all that jazz.
Sure. Yeah. If anybody, if this is your first episode listening to us, this is not going to be a good example of what our podcast is like. So sure. I apologize.
I mean, you still get to hear our voices, and sometimes the voice alone is a deal breaker for people. So I mean, sure. Hey, there's that. But yeah, this is definitely not our standard episode, but we're just gonna kind of roll with it.
We're just gonna kind of wing it today. So the idea for today, like I said, we have this survey that you can take. Once again, that's bit.ly/interpartyconflict. If you take it, takes about a couple minutes, and then you get 2 free printable board games from a friend of ours, Tom Russell from hollandspiel.com, him and his wife Mary.
Hollandspiel.
Yes. So people have taken this survey, and a couple, I've put a little spot on there for like suggestions about what can make the show better. And we've had a couple people suggest that maybe once in a while we just have an episode where, we just kind of just talk about whatever. Yeah. Most likely tabletop gaming related, but we're not going to go with our usual format today.
Right.
We're just going to talk. I have some stuff that I would like. I always have stuff that I can complain about. Yeah. So I've got some of that.
Gabe can speak at length on many topics.
Yes.
He does talks at he does like presentations and talks and things at the local library. So he's very versed on many things.
I actually haven't done one of those in a while because Lisa, my wife, the librarian over there, she's had me do these like intro to D&D sessions instead. And I actually do kind of like doing those a lot better. It's a lot less prep on my end.
Sure.
And I don't know, I think it's a lot more fun. But
I think it gets people into D&D potentially.
Absolutely. So but yeah, I did really like doing those nerd nights over there too.
Speaking of getting people into things, our mutual friend Dave is trying really hard to get me into Warhammer.
Okay.
And not that I don't like the idea of Warhammer. It's an expensive hobby. It's an expensive game. Now he has pointed out that there are some ways to get into it a little bit cheaper. Like, you can always get like used figures or even just borrow some if you want to just play a little bit and things like that. But like he's been trying really hard, and like he's got some figures that he's been like painting and posting online and stuff like that. And they're really cool. Like
I've seen them.
I want to get into miniature painting because it just seems like a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And like the way he was describing it was like, it's like, okay, you get these figures and then you paint them and then you're done. All that sucks. But then he was like, but that's not how it is. It's like you paint it and then paint everything and then you start looking at them and you're like, you know what? I can add a little bit more detail to that. I think I can make it a little bit better. Or this part's a little bit smudged. I'm going to go in there and fix it. So it's like, you're always kind of like messing with it a little bit. You always got a little little touch-ups you might want to do, or like maybe last time you played you chipped one a little bit or something like that. So like you're never really done painting them.
I feel kind of that way about my arcade cabinet. Arcade sound. I guess I'll put sound effects in this episode.
It's like the quarter noise. That I don't know.
Yeah, I'll pick a new arcade sound.
Sure.
But yeah, like with that, I finished basically all of the building a few months ago.
Yeah.
And then I had to do a bunch of computer stuff, and the computer stuff had its own hiccups.
Sure.
And at this point, like it's done. I can play it anytime I want, but I still haven't gotten all of the front end program in place. The interface isn't very good.
Right. Yeah. You kind of have to go into the list of all the ROMs and stuff like that.
Yeah. In theory, I would like to have a program in place that makes it much more pleasing to the eye when you're choosing games.
Basically, you want a way for anybody to just go up to it and turn it on and be able to pick a game or something like that.
Yeah.
And I'd be like, "Hey Gabe, can you come set this up for me?" It's like when I would go over to you go over like a relative's house or something like that when you're young, and like they have like one computer game on their computer, but like, you know, they have to set it up. I don't know. I just remember like being at a relative's place and like they had a computer up in like my aunt's office or something like that. And there was like 1 or 2 games on it, but I had to like ask her to go turn it on for me and things like that. Cause it was it's another person's computer. I didn't want to be touching it.
Yeah. Same here. I remember my uncle, had a computer at his place that like, I think I might've played Civilization, like the first Civilization game on or something similar to it. And after I was done, you know, again, I had to have him like turn on the computer or whatever. And after I was done, the next time I was over, he told me that like somehow I had like deleted a bunch of files. And I'm thinking to myself, I mean, I don't know how I could have even done that.
Like how that would have happened.
Yeah. I don't know.
Now, I will say more on like playing like games on like computers at like people's places and stuff like that. Like, yeah, you always like go over to like a relative's house and then like they might have like one game or something.
Sure.
Those games, like the one game that your relative had, like I feel like that concept alone is very interesting because like I have these memories of all these games that I've played. Like I remember like my parents like worked at this office or something for some reason. And like every once in a while I'd have to go and like hang out at that office because they were like, you know, they were doing some work or something and like they couldn't get like a babysitter or whatever. So they just brought me along. It's whatever. Yeah. So my dad would like sit me at one of the computers that like happened to have a game on it. And I remember playing this game so much. And like it was like some sort of like spaceship game. It was like Doom, but a spaceship. But you were a spaceship instead of a guy. You're going through like you're in like it's probably not an actual spaceship, but it was like a little ship or like a little flying ship thing, and you're flying through like caves and like shooting guys and finding keys and things like that.
Interesting.
I don't know what this game is, and I don't remember being like figuring it out because like I didn't know any of the controls because I didn't have like the manual because you had to have a manual in games back then.
Right.
Like. Games nowadays, they tell you all the buttons. There's prompts all the time. That's like, you know, and like it'll flash on the screen 1 billion times. You're like, yes, I know how to jump.
Right.
But back then, you're like, I don't know how to jump. Which button is jump? Especially if it's a computer game, you got a whole entire keyboard and you don't know. It's like, okay. And then you just kind of like hitting buttons randomly and suddenly you shoot a missile and you're like, oh, cool. I figured it out. But then it doesn't do it again, and you're like, "Crap!" You know,
right?
Because like maybe you only got one missile, but there's no real good way to tell because it's an old game and they didn't figure out user interfaces very well.
Yeah, it is rough playing old computer games because like there seemingly is no way to change the controls. You don't have anything telling you what the controls are, and like it's like, oh, I didn't know F11 was what I pressed to jump or whatever the heck.
Did you know that the F stand for function? You know what? I mean, obviously they had to stand for something and function 1, function 2. That makes sense.
But then don't a lot of keyboards have a function button?
I don't know.
Like mine does right here.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. That's interesting. So you press function 1,
I guess.
But no, like the first Iron Man movie.
Yeah.
Like when he's like in the cave and like working with the guy and they're like setting up like the software for like the the first suit, and he's like, he's like, oh, you gotta boot the system or whatever, push function 6. I'm like, what? And I saw he pushed F6. I'm like, is that what F means?
Interesting. Yeah.
So, or maybe he had the function button, he pushed F, and then I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but yeah. So like the F keys, I think F means function. I don't know.
I think so. F1 is typically like the help button.
Right. Yeah. It's like, the help menu or something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, like the games you would play at your relatives' place, because it was usually like a game that came with the computer.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, and my dad was a computer teacher. And then he also did like a bunch of computer stuff for like the public school system. And like, so he would end up with a lot of, he would just get a computer every once in a while.
Sure.
Like, it'd be like whenever like the computer lab at his school would get new computers, he would get one.
Yeah.
And he would get one that he would have at home because like he'd have to have one at home so he can work from home with the same system and everything. So we would just like, and it was always like Macintosh.
Yeah.
The Macintosh is just, that's what school, that at least, I don't know if that's a standard thing.
Because I went to a little dinky private school for a long time. We had Apple IIs. That's what we had forever.
Yeah. the Apple IIs.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I don't know if that's just a thing but like Apples were usually the like school computers were always Apples.
I don't know.
Or like the computer lab stuff. I don't know. That's sort of the weird thing. But yeah, so like he would get a computer, and then like there would be a small collection of games on it because it was he was a middle school, computer teacher for a while. And like there would be like free play time in like the computer labs. It just just it's fun, it's fun, and computer games have value, and they're mostly educational games in some way or another. And so like they always have these weird collection of like computer games, and they were all just very odd. Some of them were educational, but like, I don't know, there were just a bunch of weird ones. One called Hyperman.
Okay. Never heard of that.
It was I wouldn't say it's a point and click adventure. It's more like a storybook game where it's basically like it's an interactive storybook game where a sort of, gosh, I don't know how to describe this, but it was it had voice acting and animation in it, and it was ridiculous. And like there was this guy, like this superhero, I guess. I guess you could call him a superhero. He was sort of dressed like a superhero and had like superpowers. Like he can turn into things like a cow.
Okay.
He would turn into a cow. And then there was like a super villain and like a nerdy girl sidekick or something. I'm sorry, this is a really long tangent about.
Today is a tangent episode,
but it's about it's just obscure computer games that you only find on like computers of like relatives or like at your like at somebody's work or something.
Yeah,
it's just a very odd collection of games.
Sure. If you are actually interested in finding out what those games were, there's a subreddit that's r/tip of my tongue.
Oh yeah, sure.
If you can post on there and people will show up and they'll be like, oh, it's this game, and so on and so on.
And then like there's like collection of like abandonware.
Like
basically games that just like they're so old and the publisher doesn't exist anymore or something like that. There's no way to get it legitimately anymore. There's a lot of good games that you can't get legitimately anymore, and so like you have to download it, a ROM or something like that.
Yeah, that's kind of like what I was going for with my arcade cabinet is like, I wanted to be able to play all these games that I remember vaguely from my childhood. I'd love to play them and, and try and recapture some of that nostalgia. Lisa, a couple weeks ago, she found there's like this YouTube channel of this guy who goes to dead malls. So like malls that are either completely closed or are on the way out, and so there's only like a couple stores left and so on. And he like documents, there'll be even some where he'll like go to the same mall a few months apart, showing like how it was when it was starting to close and then how it was when it was almost completely closed. And there's a couple where he like got inside a mall that was already closed, like completely abandoned. And anyway, in one of the videos, he's got a whole bunch of videos. They're really, neat to have on while you're doing something else. And in one of the videos, he's talking about a mall that it only had a couple stores left, but it did still have a functioning arcade. And as part of this video in the middle, he's showing this arcade and like he had clips of some of the games that they have. And I was doing something, I think we were just hanging out in bed. I was doing something on my computer. Lisa was on her computer, and I heard some of the sound effects in one of these games. And I was like, I used to love that game, but I had no clue what it was. And it didn't really register in my head, I should probably look at that video or something and try to find what it was until like half an hour later. And by that point, it was already playing a different, she had been watching a playlist of like 10 of these videos. All of them are like 15 minutes long, and who knows where in the video this clip was. So like I had no way of finding it. So I went on, I don't even think I went to Tip of My Tongue. I think I just went to like r/Cade. Arcade, which is the arcade subreddit. And so I asked, hey, I'm trying to remember this game. I said what little things I remembered about it. I remember that you were like a guy with a sword and a shield or something. But the main thing was that you pick up keys, and as you go through the game, there will be these like jail cells in the background that you stand in front of, you use a key, and then like sometimes an enemy will come out, sometimes another character will come out, and then that character will follow you around and attack when you attack.
Huh.
That's all I remembered about the game. And yeah, a couple people were like, oh, magic sword.
Huh.
And I was like, awesome. So I went downstairs to my arcade cabinet, and sure enough, I had magic sword on there. So then I went and I spent about an hour and a half and about $10 in virtual quarters, and I beat the game.
Nice.
It was a lot of fun. I mean, it was totally a game I remember from my childhood that I'm sure I never got more than a couple levels into, and I got to play the whole game. Although at the end of this game, you're given an option of the good ending or the bad ending. They're like good ending or the evil ending, and I chose the good ending.
Oh, okay.
I don't know what the evil ending is. Someday I'll have to play it again. Yeah. And it's 2-player, Jeff.
Oh.
If you ever want to play it with me, you can.
Okay. Yeah, I love. Yeah, just like I love video games, but yeah, like the nostalgia of video games and things like that is always so because there's so much of the game that gets in your brain, because usually music in video games is repetitive. Nowadays it's not quite as repetitive, but it's still like if you spend enough time on one level or something, you're gonna hear the song over and over again, so it's gonna get stuck in your head, or just the theme music or something. So just music alone, I hear like one little bit of music from a game, and then suddenly like the entire soundtrack is playing in my head, and I'm thinking about the game and stuff like that. So
sure,
I gotta go and listen to it online or something. I don't know, gosh. I've spent so much of my life playing video games, and I'm not even really that good at them.
Yeah, I think I've said before, I don't really consider myself good at games.
Sure.
But I am very persistent and very patient.
Yes.
I don't give up.
Oh. Okay, so Gabe.
Yes.
I hear you have a problem with the 5th edition Tarrasque.
Why, yes, I do, Jeff. Thank you for asking.
Thanks for reminding me.
Yeah. So the Tarrasque. Let's give a little background on what the Tarrasque is.
Sure, yes.
It's I think,
for those of you who don't know,
the name the Tarrasque, I think, is from French folklore.
Sure.
It's got a Q-U-E at the end. So I'm pretty sure that is.
We used to call it the Tarrasque.
Yes, and I can't fault anybody for calling it that, but it is the Tarrasque. And so it's something from folklore, whatever. Basically, in D&D, ever since at least 3rd edition, I don't recall. I don't know enough about 1st or 2nd edition to know if it existed back then. But in 3rd edition and on, it is this giant monster. It's usually whatever the biggest size category is. It's this huge thing. It's got long arms with claws. It's got a giant mouth that can usually swallow people. But its main thing, it's the main defining feature of the Tarrasque, is that it is unkillable.
Right.
In 3rd edition, it had regeneration of 50 or something ridiculous. So every round, it got back 50 hit points per round. And then it had this shell that caused certain types of spells to just completely bounce off of it. So if you shot a ray at the Tarrasque, doesn't matter what you rolled, it bounces off its shell.
Yeah.
If you shoot a cone, bounces off its shell. If you shoot a targeted spell, magic missile or some other targeted spell that doesn't require an attack roll, there's a percentage chance it gets deflected. If it gets over that chance, then it affects it as normal, but it still has to make saves and whatnot.
Sure.
And so it was very, very, very hard to damage. But not only that, in 3rd edition, even if you got it to 0 hit points, it wasn't dead because of how regeneration worked. It was technically unconscious at 0 or below 0. The only way that you could actually kill it in 3rd edition was to get it to negative 900 hit points. And then again, because it's not dead, it is just unconscious. And then you had to cast either a wish or miracle. So the highest level divine or arcane spells.
Right.
In order to make it stay dead. And so it was very, very, it was a very deadly, had very, very high stats, did a ton of damage when it hit you. It definitely had a weakness in that it didn't have a ranged attack listed.
Yeah. It was very, it's huge. It is very large, but you'd have to be pretty far away from it to not be able to get hit by it.
Yeah. And I mean, we'll get to whether or not it could use a ranged attack or not later. But it wasn't very intelligent. It just had melee attacks. So like in theory, if you just flew up in the air and shot magic arrows at it, in theory, you could eventually get it to 0.
Yeah.
But then it still had that thing. You still couldn't kill it.
Yeah.
Unless you had very high level magic on your side.
Now, was it, even if you did the whole take a wish thing, didn't it like always come back anyway or something like that? Like you could never ever like completely kill it. You could.
In 3rd edition, that would actually kill it. But the idea in every edition is that there is only one Tarrasque. Right. It is not a Tarrasque. It is the Tarrasque.
Yeah, it's basically just this like enormous beast that lays dormant for a very long time and then wakes up, goes on a rampage, and then goes back to sleep or something.
Right. Because again, like you got to keep in mind that it requires very, very high level magic to actually kill it. So in a world where very, very high level magic is like nobody can do it, it's what is quite possibly the only thing that has ever been done to stop the Tarrasque in the past was they just got a bunch of high-level adventurers that just beat it unconscious and then like buried it somewhere.
Yeah.
I think there is even a campaign setting that somebody created that is built around there's a city that is built around an unconscious Tarrasque. These people got it to the negatives. They weren't able to actually kill it. So they like built, I don't know, a city around it where every day there are people on hand that just attack it to keep it unconscious. In fact, they cut off parts of it to eat, which it then regenerates. And so like this entire city's economy is based around the fact that they have this infinitely regenerating food source in the middle of the city. But if they ever slack on their duties of killing this thing, it will come back to life and destroy everybody. Right, yeah. So in 3rd edition, it was very hard to kill for the reasons that I just expressed. I can never remember which of these it is. In either Pathfinder or 4th edition, they changed it so that it is literally unkillable. Even Wish or Miracle doesn't do anything. It might have been 4th edition because 4th edition didn't really have Wish or Miracle. Huh. But in whichever edition this is, no matter what you can do, you cannot actually kill it. You can only make it go into hibernation. And they maybe this part is from Pathfinder, but whatever the case, in one of them, the theory is that if you could somehow get it to leave the material plane, it would die. Huh. Because it is it's no longer just a monster. It is a like manifestation of the world or something. Maybe that's 4th edition because in Pathfinder, it was actually part of a deity. There's a deity known as Rovagug, I think, in the Pathfinder campaign setting. Rovagug. That like created a bunch of spawn. Just like these like random abominations across the material plane were just like, just like sloughed off of this god at some point. Yeah. And wherever it fell, it turned into this horrifying monster. So the Tarrasque is one of the spawn of Rovagug. Sure. And so I think in that one, it's a little bit different. But whatever the case, in both of those editions, the Tarrasque is either almost unkillable or literally unkillable. Sure. So, even if you could just fly away from it and shoot magic arrows at it, you still can't kill it. Right, yeah. Then 5th edition comes around. Now, I don't have my monster manual handy, but if you were to whip open your monster manual and look at the Tarrasque, you might be like, oh my goodness, that's a terrifying monster. I mean, the picture is pretty terrifying. And it's like, it looks like the Tarrasque has looked like, Yeah, it's got high stats. It's got, does tons of damage when it attacks you. Its AC is through the roof. In 5th edition, I mean, nothing really has a very high AC in 5th edition, but like its AC is like one of the highest in the books. I want to say that the Great Worm Red Dragon is the only thing that has a higher AC than the Tarrasque. And I mean, like, again, I do remember seeing the AC of it and being like, that's really low, but then it's like one of the highest in the edition. Right, yeah. And then it has like, it's a legendary creature, which in 5th edition, it means that it has legendary actions and such, like legendary actions and legendary resistances. What that means is that every round, even though it's only one creature and it gets one turn, it has actions that it can take when it's not the Tarrasque's turn. It can take a turn between the player's turns as long as it's doing one of these specific things. Oh, okay. Just to mitigate the fact that action economy is such a big thing in 5th edition. Sure. And then legendary resistances makes it so that I want to say a certain number of times per round, if I'm not mistaken, it can just automatically succeed on a save.
Oh.
So if you hit it with an effect that would call for a save, it just, I made it.
Yeah.
And so, that makes it very, very hard to damage.
Sure.
However, they took away its regeneration. And there is no mention of regeneration in its description, which leads me to believe that it's not just a misprint. So the thing that made it so hard to kill, its regeneration, is gone. So this monster that is legendary for the fact that you cannot kill it can be killed relatively easily. I mean, yes, it has high AC. Yes, if it gets close enough to you, it's going to hurt you, it's going to kill you, whatever. But there is literally nothing stopping you from just getting a bunch of potions of fly or a broom of flying or a carpet of flying and just shooting magic arrows at it until it is dead.
Yeah.
In earlier editions, you could do that too, but you couldn't kill it.
Yeah, you'd have to keep doing that forever, otherwise it would get back up.
Exactly. But in this edition, there is no regeneration. There is no requirement of a wish or miracle to make it stay dead. It is just a giant sack of hit points. And now, of course, there's people that are going to say like, oh, well, there's nothing stopping the DM from having it grab a rock and throw it at you, giving it a ranged attack. That's definitely true, but that is a flawed argument, and I'll tell you why.
Okay.
Here's another thing before I get to that argument.
Okay. All right.
The Tarrasque is listed in the 5th edition Monster Manual as a challenge rating. Well, before I say what its challenge rating is, let me tell you what challenge rating is. Challenge rating is it's a number that is meant to illustrate how difficult it is to fight. Usually by indicating if you have a party of X level, in theory, a creature of X level is going to use up Y% of their resources.
Sure. So
like, I don't know exactly what it is in 5th edition, but if you have a 5th level party and you fight a challenge rating 5, it's going to use up, maybe like 20%. It is statistically likely to use up like 20% of their resources or something.
Right.
So it's kind of a gauge of, if you want the party to have a difficult encounter, maybe toss them up against a CR that's a couple levels above their level, or multiples of creatures that are their level, or maybe like a whole bunch of ones that are a little bit below their level in their challenge rating. So the highest level you can be in 5th edition is 20.
Sure.
So like, a lot of high level monsters are going to be like CR 20, maybe a few numbers above 20. Maybe I think like a Great Worm Red Dragon's like a 25, indicating that it is meant to be a difficult challenge for a party of 20th level characters. The Tarrasque is a challenge rating 30.
Okay.
I tell you right now, if a level 30 party could exist, they would have no fear whatsoever of the Tarrasque. I don't see why a party of 20th level would have any fear of the Tarrasque. If you get to 20th level, you do not do so by standing in one place and letting the enemy hit you while you hit them.
Right.
You just don't survive to 20th level by standing there and letting the enemy attack you.
Because in the case of like the Red Dragon, CR 25,
the dragon can fly.
They're super intelligent. They have
a breath
spells.
weapon, magic. Exactly.
Yeah.
There's so many things that a Great Worm Red Dragon can do that a 20th level party,
they can plan.
Exactly. Yes. So a 20th level party has to also plan in order to combat a Great Worm Red Dragon.
Yeah.
That is just expected. Because again, you don't survive that long without learning to fight intelligent creatures.
Sure.
So when a creature comes along that has no listed ranged attack, let me go back on that. If you hear of a legendary creature that can destroy a stone wall with its claws, that can bite you and swallow you in one bite, you are going to assume that this thing is very powerful.
Yeah.
So you are not going to just walk up to it and attack it. If you do, you did not deserve to make it to 20th level. I don't know how you got to 20th level, but someone else was walking you to 20th level if that was the case. So if a party is in any situation where where the Tarrasque might show up, whether it is the focus of the adventure, maybe they heard the Tarrasque is terrorizing a country and they're going to go fight it, or if they've heard legends of it and the DM is just going to have it just literally pop up out of the ground and attack. In either case, you are probably going to assume that the Tarrasque is going to be attacking you in melee. And so any party that tries to fight the Tarrasque, or even just tries to get away from the Tarrasque, is going to do so using some sort of ranged means.
Yeah.
Correct? Like, there might be a fighter in the party, but if the fighter in the party is attacking the Tarrasque, he's probably assuming I'm going to die in this fight while I'm going to keep its attention while the rest of the party actually kills it.
Sure. He's got some ability that can get him out of the way or something.
Sure.
Or he's relying on some magical item he has that gives him like a mischance.
He's going to have an escape plan.
Yeah.
He's either going to have an escape plan or he is going to be willingly sacrificing himself.
Right.
With a legendary creature like the Tarrasque. So, as a dungeon master, as a person who is creating a monster for the monster manual, whatever, whoever is going to be running this monster has to assume the party is going to try to attack it in range. Like, they're going to try to fly away and shoot at it.
Yeah.
You have to assume that. No matter what level, after like 5th level, you have to assume someone in the party is going to just like stand back and shoot at it.
Mm-hmm. In gaming terms, that's called kiting.
Exactly, yes. So, if you are creating a monster that is meant to be a very, very dangerous monster, you, again, have to take that into account. So if you are creating a monster that is meant to be the Tarrasque, and you do not give it a ranged attack in its stat block, you have failed as a monster designer. Again, there is no reason the DM cannot say the Tarrasque grabs a rock and throws it.
Right.
There is no reason the DM cannot give the Tarrasque a ranged attack.
Yeah.
But as written, the Tarrasque has no ranged attack. Therefore, it is a bad monster. So if the Tarrasque is fighting a 20th level party, or any level party, they are not going to be fighting it in melee. Okay, that's just a given.
Yeah.
Therefore, whatever ranged attack the DM gives the Tarrasque is going to be its main means of dealing damage.
Sure.
So name another monster in any book anywhere whose primary means of dealing damage is not listed in its stat block.
Sure.
There isn't one.
Yeah.
Because you don't do that. The only person who would create a monster whose primary means of dealing damage is going to be 100% ineffective to 100% of the people that it's fighting is a bad monster.
No, I that's more of a observation on like the Tarrasque in general.
Okay.
And not necessarily just the 5th edition Tarrasque. Because I mean, like that's a flaw in the Tarrasque in all versions.
Definitely true.
Now, I would say that having the regeneration makes you a little bit more likely to take the risk of going in and attacking melee. Because a lot of times, if you have a fighter and his main damaging abilities are melee attacks, you're going to want to try and do as much damage as you can to that thing in each round because it's going to heal back 50
That's a very, very good point. Because if you have a magic bow, chances are it's not going to deal enough damage to overcome its regeneration.
Right, yeah.
So you are forced to go into melee with it or expend a lot more resources like powerful magic and so on.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a great point. But then taking away that regeneration gives the party even less incentive to get into melee with it.
Yeah, because at that point you just have to pepper it. You just gotta hit it.
In fact, you want to hear something even more ridiculous? A party of 1st level characters. I can make right now in my head a party of 1st level characters that could kill the Tarrasque without taking a single hit. Do you want to know what they are?
What? All Rangers?
No, because the Tarrasque does have immunity to non-magical weapons, which to be fair is really cool.
Sure.
That is definitely a reason why NPCs would be afraid of the Tarrasque, because NPCs are not going to have a way to damage this thing. Also, you might say, like a 1st level wizard can just like shoot, or Or like a first level warlock could like shoot Eldritch Blast at it. Can't do that either because it has that reflective shell.
Sure.
And an Eldritch Blast is an attack that is reflected by that.
Mhm.
If an attack requires a save, but is not like an area attack, the Tarrasque has no, I mean, it has its legendary resistances, which like I think it's like a couple times per round lets it automatically make a save. So basically what I'm getting at is if you were to make a party of like 4 or 5 tiefling clerics, and of course I'm using the ridiculous flying tiefling.
Sure.
If you make a winged tiefling or party of winged tiefling clerics, all that have the Sacred Flame cantrip.
Oh, yeah.
It is a cantrip, so they can use it at will. It requires a save, which means the Tarrasque, it's not immune to it, although it can a certain number of times per round just automatically make the save. And it's going to have a very, very high chance of making the save. Let's be fair here.
Sure.
But if you had enough first level tiefling clerics all using Sacred Flame on the Tarrasque, there's nothing it can do but run away. And I mean, it's going to get away. If it wants to run away, it's going to run away. No problem.
Right.
But I don't know, if it were somehow locked in a room with a very, very tall room with a whole bunch of these tiefling clerics, these first level characters are going to kill it. That there is, even though this is a ridiculous corner case, there is no excuse for a party of whatever first level characters you want to make that should be able to kill the Tarrasque.
Yeah.
In 3rd edition, that's literally impossible. Even if they somehow get over its regeneration, they don't have Wish or Miracle.
Sure.
In 4th edition or Pathfinder or whatever, like whichever one of them, it's just literally impossible.
Yeah.
And so the fact that this is possible in 5th edition, again, I know it's a ridiculous corner case, but it's just pointing out how terrible of a monster the Tarrasque is. The Tarrasque is not worthy of that CR 30.
Right, yeah.
Because a 20th level party is going to have some way to kill this thing or just get away from it.
Right, yeah. Yeah, it won't be a threat. The only way that it's a threat is if it's like attacking a town, they have to stop it.
True.
But
and
in that case,
that's a cool
right.
way that is the only way to actually make the Tarrasque a concern.
Right. And I mean, like, that is the lore concern of a Tarrasque, is that it like wakes up and rampages and just terrorizes the land.
Yeah.
And you got to stop it somehow.
But then the fight isn't about fighting the Tarrasque. It's about stopping. It's about stopping this monster before it destroys it. Like that's a different type of encounter.
Yeah.
I always see people on the 5th edition Facebook group complain, like somebody's like, "Oh man, the Tarrasque," and then everybody's like, "Oh, it's so terrible." And like, I have to always be that guy that's like, not in 5th edition. It was terrible it was terrifying in earlier editions.
Yeah.
It's not scary anymore.
Yeah, it's Tarrasque light.
And like in 3rd edition, I hated the arguments of, oh, you could just like fly away and shoot it with arrows. I hated that argument because, number one, I was like, at the time I was like, well, what party's actually going to do that? Before I realized, well, every party is going to do that, right, because the alternative is idiotic.
Yeah, it's like if there's one sure way to do a thing, people are always going to do that one thing.
Yeah, like you don't get to be 20th level to become a 20th level character by doing things in the most straightforward way possible.
Yeah,
you just don't.
Yeah,
and so I would hate how people would use that argument just because I thought it was unrealistic. But then at the same time, even if you did do enough damage, you still can't kill it. Mm. And then when I saw, oh, this can actually be worse, they could actually make the Tarrasque even easier to kill. That's what made me realize, like, no, actually the flying and shooting arrows thing is relatively sound, because I mean, if you're intelligent even a little bit, you're going to try and get out of range.
Yeah. And like what, Tarrasque has an intelligence of like 3 or something?
I think so, yeah.
It's like the usual, like the animal intelligence. It's just it's a beast.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Like, sure, again, the DM can have it grab a rock and throw it, but if so, that's going to be its primary means of dealing damage. And, I mean, I would imagine that the DM could just give a thrown rock from the Tarrasque really high damage, but like, if you look at the core rules on what throwing a rock does, that means the Tarrasque, this horrifying engine of destruction, is doing like a D10 damage per round.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be a pretty big rock.
I mean, yeah, that's kind of nitpicking there, but sure. Like, that's just pointing. That's pointing on another flaw, and that's the flaw with like improvised weapons.
And what didn't they get rid of colossal size?
Yeah, colossal. I don't think colossal's been a thing since 3.5.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Which I mean, like, isn't necessarily like a big thing. I
Yeah.
think that's just like one less set of bonuses, like a larger creature gets or something like that.
I want to say back in, I think whichever edition was that you had to get it off the material plane, somebody came up with a way to kill the Tarrasque because it was no longer colossal. Whatever size category it was technically possible to create a gate spell that was big enough to fit the Tarrasque through it. So like, it's like, oh, just push it through a gate and then it's dead.
Yeah, because it's just like it's a creature of the material plane or something. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. So yeah, the Tarrasque really bothers me because I feel like it is this perfect storm of terrible game design. It's something that is so clearly meant to be very, very intimidating.
Yeah.
But in any sort of realistic setting, I cannot imagine it being so.
And it's just like big legendary creature that like most, if not all D&D players know about and are like, oh my God, the Tarrasque. It's a joke. It's a joke. That,
you know what?
It is a common joke. Like, oh, a Tarrasque appears.
Exactly.
You know, it's like it would always be like, you know, like if your players aren't paying attention, it's like, and you just kind of like mumble to yourself, like, all right, guys, roll initiative. The Tarrasque just showed up.
Yeah, I've done that many, many times.
Yeah.
There was one time, long time ago, I was doing something with Jay, our friend Jay, and I think I jokingly had Jay's character like in a dream. I think I had just read the book about like one of the third edition books had like something about the plane of dreams or something.
Oh.
And so I was like, okay, your character's in a dream. And then I was having all this crazy stuff happen. And then I mentioned that like, oh, you're getting attacked by the Tarrasque. And Jay was like, well, I'm in a dream, right? And I said, yeah. And I'm like, and he's like, well, can I create something? And I'm like, yeah, sure. Whatever. What do you want to create? And he was like, I would like to fight the Tarrasque with an army of Ichis. And so yeah, like I thought that was a clever idea. I was going to fight the Tarrasque with a whole bunch of no, it was a swarm of Ichis.
A swarm of Ichis
because of swarms.
Swarms are yeah.
And so
the Tarrasque is a meme.
Yeah, the Tarrasque absolutely is like it's the joke that you say because it's like, oh, the Tarrasque, it's so deadly. There's no way I'm going to throw the Tarrasque at you. But here's the thing: I think the Tarrasque is a monster version of the Tomb of Horrors. It is something that originally it was very, very deadly.
Oh yeah.
It kind of rightfully had a reputation of being deadly because a lot of people fought it when they were new to the game or they heard about it when they were new to the game or whatever. But if you actually look at it, you actually think it through, you actually play it through, you realize, oh, this is just bad. The numbers are really high, but that's it.
Yeah.
This isn't an interesting monster. This isn't an interesting dungeon. It's just kind of, okay, flip a coin, heads you die, tails you flip again.
Right, yeah. Yeah.
And so like it's not, I don't think the Tomb of Horrors is worthy of the reputation it has. I don't think the Tarrasque is worthy of the reputation it has because the reputation comes from way back when it was deadly.
Yeah.
And even if it wasn't as deadly as people thought it was then, whatever like collective consciousness that people have about how deadly it was has only ballooned, without any worthiness whatsoever. The Tomb of Horrors has not gotten deadlier. It's gotten less deadly.
Sure.
But more people know about it as being deadly because it's existed for so long.
Right.
Same with the Tarrasque. The Tarrasque has gotten less deadly, but everybody knows about it. Few people, I'm sure, have actually fought it. And so it's like, oh, my cousin once fought the Tarrasque. My cousin once went through the Tomb of Horrors, and oh, it was so deadly. And so that's what people have in their mind, and then the story spreads. Yeah,
it's again, and like as you get new versions of things, like they have to like adjust it to fit the new mechanics, and they've made mechanics. They're trying to make it easier and easier to play because they want more people to play, which is understandable.
You can't fault them for that.
No, not at all.
Save or die is not fun.
No, yeah.
But that doesn't mean that you should, bring in like there shouldn't be save or dies in most cases. But that also means that if you have a dungeon that's based on save or dies, it's not good. Don't try to update it. Don't try to recreate it with or without save or dies, because as we saw, save or dies are not fun. So by extension, the Tomb of Horrors isn't fun. The Tomb of Horrors is a dull adventure.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's got good flavor. I guess
It's good in stories.
Yeah.
That's really it.
right, which is fine. And like a lot of times, like, you know, like there's so many, like, you know, there's so many stories and movies and things like that where like they're going off of this idea of this like legendary hero or something, and then they find the hero and he's not quite what you thought he was.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, it's kind of like that where, you know, you never meet your heroes, or
Right.
what is that the
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, it's like
think that's the expression.
never meet your hero, because they're never going to live up to your, you know, what you think of them.
Yeah.
So like, you know, never go into the Tomb of Horrors, because it's not going to be quite as deadly as you thought it was going to be.
Exactly.
You know, don't fight the Tarrasque.
Now going through the Tomb of Horrors as the Tarrasque. There you go.
he does the raking motion.
does the raking motion.
And it just digs up the whole.
Yes. It's like, oh, there's the demi-lich.
You found it. When there's one sure way to do something, like, so like there's like, okay, like obviously that's how you defeat the Tarrasque.
Yeah.
So you fly and you shoot it. Yeah, that's bad design. And that reminds me of, I was just talking to Dave the other day, and he mentioned like Dota 2 came out with the update, and he mentions like some changes and stuff. I haven't played it in a while, but I do like to keep up to date with it because it was a fun game when I played it. Yeah. It was like, oh yeah, they took out this one item, and I was like, oh okay, and like it was a very low level item, but because it was low level, it was cheap. But it also had some decent stats to it. It wasn't overpowered.
Okay.
It wasn't necessarily overpowered, but because it was just like, it was good stats for how cheap it was, everyone bought it.
Yeah.
Everyone did. Like at least like every character that used that stat, which a third of the characters do, because like there's only 3 major stats in that game. So it's an agility item that is also like a shield or something. So like you get some defensive stuff and you get all the benefits of agility. And if you're an agility hero, you get all these extra benefits from it. So like, you know, even if you weren't an agility hero, it was still really good for the price. If you were an agility hero, it's amazing. So like all agility heroes would always use it. Yeah. And then like they took that out. And it wasn't because, at least this is why I think they took it out. It wasn't because it was overpowered, because it was pretty powerful, but mostly just because of how cheap it was. Yeah. But like, because by the end of the game, you wouldn't have it anymore because you get something better. Right. There's tons of items and stuff in the game that you build up to. But like, you know, in the early game, everyone would have it. You know, and they didn't get rid of it because it was too powerful. They got rid of it because if you have this game that has hundreds of heroes, hundreds of items, and like so many different combinations of like, you know, ways to build your character and stuff like that, if everybody's using the same thing, that's boring. Yeah. That's a waste of so many other options. And like, you're supposed to, you know, the idea of the game is, you know, you have all these choices to make, and like you're kind of going off of like, okay, you know, what's the enemy team, like what heroes are they using? Okay, they're using these heroes, so I need to build my character based on that. Okay, because I'm weak against that guy, but he uses magic a lot, so I'm gonna get an item that gives me magic protection. Yeah. You know, so like it's kind of like it's a little chess game where you react. You have to react very quickly and figure out what you're gonna do, and like you make a bunch of long-term and short-term goals and things like that. But like, if you go into a game going, okay, like if basically like in a competitive game like that, there's a lot of toxicity between players and stuff like that. Especially within the same team. That's usually how it goes. Is like people getting mad at each other for not playing the game right. Yeah. So if I went in and played Dota with that, and while that item was still around, and I didn't use that item, people would basically yell at me. Yeah. They would probably report me. Like, you know, and like, for those of you who don't know, in competitive games, if a player is being like obnoxious, or they're like, you know, they're like swearing, or, you know, being vulgar, or just being rude in general, you can report them and be like, hey, this player wasn't being very nice.
Yeah.
And, with enough reports, they could get suspended from the game or banned from the game or something like that. Because, you want cooperation in a cooperative competitive,
Yeah, absolutely.
as well as competitive game. So like I'm pretty sure that probably has happened where somebody,
I'm sure it is. Yeah.
didn't get that one item and somebody else reported them for it because that was the thing of course you're going to get that item. Why wouldn't you? There's no reason not to get that item.
Yeah.
Because that's bad design. So they got rid of it.
Yeah. I totally understand why they would do something like that.
Yeah. So I don't know. That just kind of makes me think, yeah, like if the Tarrasque there's one sure way to kill it.
Yeah.
And every other way is a big risk. You're gonna pick the way that's that's easy.
And there are so many ways that they could address this.
Mm-hmm.
I had an idea back in the 3rd edition days because I did hear a lot of people would just say, oh, all of us, we would just fly and shoot +5 arrows at it or whatever.
Yeah.
And I always thought, well, okay, if that is a problem, why not? And I think I actually had this idea when I think it was whichever one, Pathfinder, whatever one where it was tied to the material plane. I had the idea, what if the Tarrasque has an aura of grounding is what I called it.
Oh, sure.
And so let's say it has this aura that's 500 feet in every direction or something, where anything that is not on the ground is pulled to the ground. Mm-hmm. So if you are flying, your fly spell stops working. So you either float to the ground or you fall to the ground. If you shoot arrows from a certain distance away, their range is halved or reduced, whatever. And then that would, number one, stop players from just flying up above it and shooting down, because then they wouldn't be able to fly. Or if they were, they would be far out. They would have to be so far outside of their bow's range in order to do it.
Yeah.
Or it would make it so that even if you did just shoot arrows you would have to shoot arrows from close enough that it could attack you or run up to you and attack you or whatever.
Right.
It would make it so that if there was a character that was trying to fight it in range, they still could, but they would have to be doing so from a position where the Tarrasque could feasibly run up and attack them.
Yeah.
So the fighter would have to be in melee to stop the Tarrasque from attacking the ranger that's shooting the bows that are the arrows that are actually doing the damage to it.
Yeah.
So I think that is such a better way to deal with this than, they haven't dealt with it. They didn't deal with anything.
Now, you mentioned earlier the thing with the legendary actions. Is there some sort of legendary regeneration?
No, I'm trying to remember what its legendary actions are. Now I do wish I had my monster manual with me. Let me look it up. Hang on a second.
Legendary attacks, move, and chomp. Okay.
Yeah, so the Tarrasque has 3 legendary actions around, and of those, it can make a claw or tail attack, it can move up to half its speed, or it can make a bite or swallow attack. So 3 times around, it can do one of those 3 things between any other 2 characters' turns. And then it's hang on a minute. Legendary resistance. I thought there was a limit on how many times it could do that. Okay.
If the target fails the same thing, you can choose to succeed instead. Oh.
Yeah, I thought it was a certain number of times per day, but okay. So for anybody listening, let me redact part of my earlier tirade. Only part of it. It just means that the first level cleric party wouldn't work.
Okay. All right.
So I apologize. I thought that the legendary resistance was a certain number of times per day or per round or something. I guess it's just whenever it wants. It can just succeed.
It can choose not to succeed.
I guess, yeah.
It's only got 3 intelligence, so maybe sometimes it'd be like, you know what, I feel like taking damage right now.
Sure. So okay. So I'm sorry that a first level party of clerics can't kill it.
Darn.
I guess you would need a first level ranger with a +1 bow. Yeah, one single first level tiefling ranger with a +1 bow, however, would be able to kill it with enough arrows.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Oh, I mean, in the new book, there's I think a couple new character options that you can have magical weapons at first level.
That's true.
In some way. It's not you don't get a magical item, it's just you give your
you bestow a magic property onto your weapon.
Yes.
So okay. So and it wasn't one of those a cleric?
Yeah.
So there you go. A first level tiefling cleric can still do it with Xanathar's Guide to Everything.
I think so.
All right.
I'm not 100% sure.
I was not 100% incorrect. But anyway.
But in any case, like the overall point still stands.
Yes. The Tarrasque, I mean, why take away its regeneration? Like I get because they were trying to make the whole game as a whole just kind of less powerful. They were trying to like reduce the power level across the board.
Yeah.
I'm fine with that. I can understand that. But what do you expect a party to do when fighting the Tarrasque? How do you make this sort of a monster and not think, okay, let me picture what this encounter would actually look like? Mm-hmm. Why would you not have some other employees at Wizards of the Coast make characters and have them fight this thing? That's what playtesting is.
Yeah.
This monster is so clearly to me a monster that was not playtested.
Well,
at least it wasn't playtested enough, definitely.
And I think that's part of it is because I don't know, because it's such an iconic creature and everything like that. They don't bother to playtest it.
I guess
they just tweak it and say it's the Tarrasque. Of course, it's fine.
They're like, well, this type of attack is statted out this way. This type of attack statted out this way. Yeah. Okay, next monster.
Right. I think they overlooked it because it was the Tarrasque. I guess. And it just thought to me like, okay, the Tarrasque isn't really meant to be used as an actual fight. It's more just like an obstacle thing. But even still, like it's like you would only really use the Tarrasque against a low level party and to be like, hey, run away from it. But
I guess
again, if using the same tactic, like you could, like at low level, you could still defeat it. And if a player even has the smallest idea of being able to defeat the Tarrasque at that low level, they're going to try it.
Yeah.
Players very rarely run away. In most cases, they will not run away.
Right.
And part of it is sort of the mentality of like, okay, obviously, like I have to beat this. There's got to be some way to do it. Otherwise, the DM would have put it in there.
Right.
I think that goes with like video games, because it's like, okay, like there's got to be some way to beat it because here I am. Okay, this monster showed up and I'm able to hit it. There has to be a way to beat it. But then you find out like, oh, it's a scripted thing that you have to lose.
Sure,
but you spent 5 hours trying to beat this boss and like reloading a save to try and beat it. And you can't, and just to find out that you were supposed to die to it, you know?
Right.
But I mean, in this case, I mean, with enough time and enough resources, a very low level party could potentially kill it.
And really all it takes is the one character who played a winged tiefling ranger or something who happened to be given a magic bow. All it takes is for that one character, that one player to be like, oh, I'm going to run away from this thing, but let me try just like flying up and shooting it and see what happens.
Yeah.
And then he rolls a natural 20 or something. And then he's like, oh, that actually dealt damage to it. And it's not regenerating. And oh, it can't reach me. I'll just keep doing it. That's all it takes.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I don't understand how the playtesters did not realize how crappy of a monster this is.
Yeah. And it's not like, even if it was like a slow regen, like it could run away and get and like regenerate, and like you have to like track it down, but because it's so big, it can, it moves very fast or something.
Or
actually, it's only got a 40-foot speed.
Yeah, I mean, it's not super fast. It does have the legendary action where it can move up to 3 times around an additional 20 feet.
So, I mean, like you could move, dash.
Oh, yeah.
And then move 3 times.
Yeah.
So, like,
I mean, it can, if it wants to, it can move pretty fast.
200 feet.
So.
Around.
Yeah, this is not, that challenge 30 is like spitting in the face of everyone who has ever actually tried to make a high level monster and found it difficult. It's like, oh, you're having trouble? Shoot, just increase the numbers and then whatever.
Yeah. It's like, yeah, okay, yeah, it's we need a harder creature in here. All right, we'll just change the CR 25 to a CR 30.
I mean, if you're going to get rid of the regeneration, just leave in the thing that it can't actually die unless certain conditions are met.
Sure.
problem solved.
Yeah.
You can still knock it unconscious. You can put it back into hibernation.
Yeah,
But
and it has to like,
it's gonna come back someday. It could even be something as simple as there's all those artifacts that are like, oh, in order to destroy this artifact, you have to hit it with a +3 weapon, which is, the highest a magic weapon can get.
Sure.
Or you've got to do this other thing. You've got to like bait the Tarrasque into falling into this bottomless gorge or whatever. There's so many things they could have done that's like the Tarrasque cannot be killed unless it could even leave it open-ended. Like even if the Tarrasque drops to 0 hit points, it is not permanently killed unless certain conditions are met as set by the DM.
Sure.
Why not put that in there?
I mean,
I just don't understand.
A DM could definitely just do that.
Definitely.
But I mean, like,
if you're going like that, the DM doesn't need the book. The DM doesn't need the stat block at all.
Right? Yeah, you could just wing it. Yeah, it's disappointing.
Yeah.
I mean, if anybody has any counter arguments, please let us know.
I mean, I'd love to hear them. Although I have I've heard a lot of counter arguments, and all of them have their own flaws. So.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
I like your analogy with the Tomb of Horrors. It's just like back in the day it was dangerous, and just like as the new editions have come out, it's sort of like they've
held on to the fact that it's the stories of it are cool.
Yeah.
They haven't kept the mechanics to actually back that up.
Yeah. And somebody could argue that that's like they're trying to make the game easier for more people to play. Like
that's fine, but don't have this be this legendary creature there's only one of that, stories are told of how deadly this monster is, and then have it be something that anyone with enough, +1 bows could kill.
Yeah, like with enough planning, yeah, for sure. And I mean, like, maybe the idea is that the heroes that's with metagaming though. Technically, I mean,
I guess, but I mean,
I guess it wouldn't take too much to figure it out.
When
like
something is this well known, you have to assume there's going to be metagaming.
Yeah,
like you don't. I don't know. Like if you're running like a superhero game or something, you don't have Superman show up and then expect the players not to know who Superman is.
Sure,
you know what I mean. Like if you don't give a character kryptonite and then have Superman show up and then be like, oh, you don't know who Superman is. Or like you can't use that kryptonite.
It's like, yeah, you don't know that you have that you have his one weakness.
Exactly. It's like, well, then why did you give me anyway? Why did you use this such an iconic character when anyway?
Ugh.
So the Tarrasque very, very much angers me just because it is so glaringly poorly made to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't understand why it still has the reputation that it does not deserve.
Yeah. I mean, like, without the reputation, it's a powerful beast.
It is not a CR30.
Not a CR30.
Make it like a CR18 or something. Yeah, I'm good.
Sure.
No problem for me.
Sure. Yeah.
But not a 30.
Yeah, I think that 30 just seemed really obnoxious. But I mean, then again, I've never fought the Tarrasque. So.
Like here, let me make up a monster off the top of my head. Okay, this monster has a 5-foot movement speed. Has a -2 attack bonus on all attacks. So whenever I roll, I subtract 2 from what I roll. It has 1 hit point, and it automatically fails every save. However, it deals 5 million damage per hit. CR50. No, it's not a CR50.
Right.
Because a 50th level party is not going to be threatened by it because they're just going to kill it.
Right. Yeah.
Numbers do not make a CR. Anyway.
This has been an episode of Gabe Rants.
Yes. I was going to say this is an episode of Monster Factory, but no, that's an actual thing.
Oh, sure.
A couple of the macro, I mentioned the Adventure Zone. I've mentioned the Adventure Zone a bunch of times. The McElroy brothers do that. 2 of them are the guys that created Polygon.com, the game review website or whatever. Yeah. It's Griffin and Justin McElroy. They have a YouTube channel called Monster Factory where they play a video game where you can make a character and they try to make the character look as horrible as possible. It's a lot of fun.
Good.
There was they were playing Fallout 4, I think, and they exploited some sort of a glitch that makes your character like you can make your character as big as you want. So they made a character that was like so big that the entire game world was visible on the screen just by looking at the like the third person view of the character. And then they went around trying to like fight enemies that were so small they couldn't even see them. It was
oh no,
it was pretty neat.
Oh,
yeah.
right.
All right. So
so if you guys enjoyed this episode,
and I had other stuff I wanted to rant about too,
Right.
but that'll have to wait for another episode.
yeah. Oh yeah. If you want to hear more of Gabe's rants,
I've got plenty of them.
let us know, and we'll maybe we'll do this sort of episode again.
Yeah, maybe every once in a while.
We'll try to we'll try to mix things up from time to time.
Sure. Yeah, I wouldn't want to do something like this very often.
Right. Yeah.
I very much enjoy the format that our podcast has. I
Yeah.
think I've even mentioned before, when I listen to podcasts, because I listen to a lot of them, I actually don't like it when a podcast doesn't have a format.
Yeah, or they start with one and then they kind of go off the rails as the show goes on.
And I mean, so I just want to make clear, I have no intention of this being our usual episode.
Yeah.
This is just, we felt like doing something a little different. We had some people say that, they might enjoy an episode that was a little different. So
Yeah.
thought we'd try this out.
And, maybe we'll just turn this into a new segment, Gabe's Rants. And,
I don't even, see, I've thought about that before.
but I mean, it won't be a segment. It would be a whole episode.
I guess, yeah.
So
yeah, back a little insider baseball here. When we were first coming up with a funeral pyre, before the funeral pyre came out, I was trying to think of what's a cool new segment we could do. And one idea I had, because it was right after I had ranted about the flying tieflings, which made an appearance in this episode. I was like, well, what if we had a segment where it's just Gabe ranting? But then I thought, no, I don't want our podcast to be negative. I don't want there to be every episode there's a segment about me complaining. So instead I went with a segment where we talk about people dying grisly deaths instead.
Something a little bit more upbeat.
A little bit more upbeat, yeah.
All right.
All right, so I don't know. I've had a lot of fun. Do you think anything else you want to talk about today?
I mean, I can ramble about games and stuff all day, but I don't know. It's
Okay,
not quite as entertaining as Gabe going off
I guess
on the Tarrasque.
There's a picture I saw. I'll try to see if I can find it and put in the show notes. But there's a picture of like this guy who set up this booth outside, I don't know, a convention or something. And so he has a table with a little like sign in front of it that says, basically like, I will argue with anyone about anything, $5. So that's what I picture myself as sometimes.
I'll just argue it. Just give me a point to argue. I'll argue it against whoever you want.
Yep.
$5.
All right. I guess you want to wrap up?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. We don't really need to do our usual outro. Just, thanks everybody for sticking with us. If you stuck with us,
yeah.
Hopefully you'll join us next time for another normal episode.
Yeah. Just let us know what you think. If maybe you want.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll just do like, special, Gabe Rant episodes from time to time.
Sure. And Jeff Rant episodes. So let's not be selective here.
I guess there's some things I can rant about. I'll try to make a list.
Okay.
We'll just have we'll have a ranty episode every now and then. Or
sure.
something.
Maybe
just,
like once a year or something.
Oh, Rants and Rambles.
That's good alliteration.
Yeah, Rants and Rambles.
If my name was Jabe instead of Gabe, Jabe and Jeff's Rants and Rambles.
Gabe and Geff.
Yeah.
I
used to have a friend who called me Jabe all the time. I don't know why.
What's up, Jabe?
Yeah.
All right.
Well, thank you all for joining us. iTunes, Audible, rate, review. But no, in all seriousness, InterPartyConflict@gmail.com.
Yes.
Send us if you have any comments about this episode, any suggestions for our next rant, whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever you want.
Yeah. Please, feedback, please.
All right. Thanks a lot, everybody.
All right. Goodbye.